My name is Thomas. I am 70 years old. The cake sat on the dining room table, a sugary monument to a milestone I no longer felt like celebrating. 70 candles. My son, Michael, had insisted on it. "It's a big one, Dad," he'd said, clapping me on the shoulder with a heartiness that felt rehearsed. Now, the party was winding down. The grandchildren were overtired, the air thick with the cloying scent of buttercream frosting and stale party horns. My children, Michael and Sarah, and their respective spouses, Laura and Diego, gathered me in the living room. They called it the family circle, a term that used to mean warmth and support but now felt like an enclosure. "Dad," Sarah began, her voice smoothed over with a layer of professional sympathy she used on her clients. "We need to talk about the future." I settled into my worn armchair, the one my late wife, Clara, always said was molded perfectly to my shape. "The future is here," I chuckled. "I'm 70, not much left to plan." Diego, Sarah's husband, a man who always looked like he was calculating exchange rates in his head, cleared his throat. "Precisely, Thomas. At this age, you need security. Proper care." I bristled. "I care for myself just fine. I walk 2 miles every day. I still do the crossword in ink." Michael leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, adopting a posture of grave sincerity. "Dad, we've seen you forgetting things. The other day you couldn't remember Miss Albright's name from the agency." "Agency? What agency?" My mind raced. Miss Albright. The name was vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. A flicker of panic ignited in my chest. "The real estate agency, Dad," Michael said, his voice dropping. Laura, his wife, placed a hand on his arm, a silent signal of solidarity. The two of them against me. A familiar dynamic. "We've listed the house." The air left my lungs. The sounds of the grandchildren playing in the yard faded into a dull roar. "You what? You can't. This is my house." "Technically," Diego interjected, pulling a sheaf of papers from his briefcase. "It's our house. You signed it over to us in the estate plan 5 years ago. Remember? To avoid inheritance taxes." I did remember. Vaguely. After Clara passed, I was adrift in a sea of grief and paperwork. I would have signed anything they put in front of me. I trusted them. But that was a formality. A just-in-case scenario. "I'm still alive." My voice cracked, a pathetic, splintering sound. Sarah's face, a mask of pity, was the worst part. "We know this is hard, but the upkeep is too much for you. We found a wonderful place. Golden Meadows. It has a garden, activities, round-the-clock nursing staff." They were talking about a nursing home. They were describing my cage. They had been planning this behind my back, smiling at me during Sunday dinners while they plotted to uproot me from the soil of my life. The humiliation was a physical force, pressing down on my shoulders, stealing the breath from my chest. They had brought me a birthday cake to celebrate my own eviction. "We already signed the papers," Michael said, his tone final. "The buyers are very motivated. It's a cash offer, no inspections. They want to close in 30 days. He looked at me, not with malice, but with a chilling, detached pragmatism, as if discussing a stock portfolio. "It's for the best." They stood there, my 2 children and their partners, a united front of betrayal. They had taken my past, the home I built with their mother, and sold it for cash. They had taken my future and confined it to a single room in a place called Golden Meadows. All that was left was the present moment, the suffocating reality of their decision. My home, filled with the ghosts of my love and the echoes of their childhood laughter, was nothing more than a transaction. And as I looked at their resolute faces, I realized I was utterly, hopelessly alone. The front door clicked shut. the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. They were gone. Michael had taken the half-eaten cake, claiming he didn't want it to go to waste. A final, petty twist of the knife. I stood in the hallway, the floral scent of Laura's perfume lingering in the air like a taunt. I was a guest in my own home, on a 30-day notice. My body felt heavy, each limb infused with a leaden sorrow. I shuffled into the living room and sank back into my armchair, the worn leather sighing under my weight. From here I could see the pencil marks on the doorframe where Clara had meticulously tracked Michael's and Sarah's heights, a ladder of tiny lines ascending toward adulthood. I looked at the mantelpiece, at the photos of smiling children who no longer existed. There was Michael at age 6, missing his 2 front teeth, proudly holding up a string of fish. There was Sarah, age 10, in her ballet tutu, her face a mixture of fierce concentration and joy. Where did those children go? When did their hearts harden into these cold, calculating instruments of finance and convenience? I saw Clara's face in a silver frame, her smile warm and genuine, a beacon from a lifetime ago. "Oh, Clara," I whispered into the empty room. "What did we do wrong?" The house seemed to breathe around me, each creak of the floorboards a memory. I remembered laying these floors myself, my knees aching, while a young Michael tried to help by hammering nails into scrap wood. I remembered painting Sarah's room a soft yellow, Clara directing me from a stepladder, a smudge of paint on her nose. This wasn't a house. It was a living scrapbook of our lives, and my children were about to rip the pages out and sell the binding. The humiliation from earlier had cooled into a deep, chilling ache in my bones. They thought I was senile, incompetent, a problem to be managed. Unable to sit still, I began to wander. I drifted into our bedroom, my hand tracing the outline of Clara's side of the bed. Her scent was long gone, but the ghost of her presence remained. In the closet, behind a stack of old sweaters, was her old file box. She called it her box of everything. Mortgages, birth certificates, warranties for appliances we no longer owned. She was the organized one, the keeper of our family's official history. I pulled it down, dust motes dancing in the dim light. I had no energy to open it, no purpose. It felt like another artifact of a life that was already over. I set it on the bed and was about to turn away when a loose paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. It was an old property tax bill from the late 90s. I bent down to pick it up, my joints protesting. As I glanced at it, my mind foggy with grief, something caught my eye. It was an anomaly, a detail I'd seen for years but never truly registered. The bill was itemized, split into 2 distinct lines with 2 separate valuations. One was for improvements, structure, the other was for land. Why would they bill them separately? It seemed odd, a bureaucratic quirk. I dismissed it and started to crumple the paper. But something made me stop, a tiny, inexplicable flicker of what? Not hope. It was too soon for hope. It was the whisper of a question in a mind that had just been told it had no more answers. The morning light streamed through the living room windows, illuminating the dust particles I hadn't noticed before. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the night replaying the conversation with my children, their words echoing in my head. We already signed the papers. I sat at the kitchen table, the old tax bill spread out before me like a cryptic map. Improvements, structure, it read, with a value next to it. Below it, land, with its own, separate value. It was as if I owned 2 different things at the same address. I'd paid these bills for decades without a second thought, writing one check to the county treasurer. But seeing it now, through the lens of betrayal, it felt significant. a loose thread in the tightly woven narrative my children had presented. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the phone. There was only one person who might understand this. Arthur Mendez. We'd been friends since we were young men, and he'd spent 40 years as a small-town lawyer, specializing in property and estates. He was retired now, living by a lake 2 hours away, but his mind was as sharp as a tack. I dialed his number, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. It went to voicemail. "Arthur, it's Thomas. Call me, it's important." I didn't want to leave a message confessing that my own children were selling my house out from under me. The shame was too great. I spent the next hour pacing the length of the house, from the front door to the back porch, a caged animal measuring its confines. Every object I looked at mocked me. The sturdy dining table where I'd taught Michael to do his homework. The garden where I'd shown Sarah how to plant roses, just as my father had taught me. This was my territory, my kingdom, and I was being deposed by my own heirs. I felt a surge of anger, a hot, powerful current that momentarily burned through the fog of despair. How dare they? After everything Clara and I did for them, everything we sacrificed, they saw me as a doddering old fool, a liability. Just as I was about to try Arthur's number again, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. My stomach clenched. Through the sheer curtains, I saw a sleek, silver sedan I didn't recognize. A woman in a severe pantsuit got out. She moved with an unnerving efficiency, popping the trunk and pulling out a metal frame and a rectangular sign. My sign, the sign that would announce to the world that Thomas was finished, that his home was now just another commodity on the market. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, watching through the window as she marched onto my lawn. She hammered the stake into the soft grass near the mailbox, the percussive thud echoing my own hammering heart. Then she attached the sign, in big, bold letters. It read, "For sale." Below that, in smaller print, "Pending." She wasn't just listing it. She was telling everyone it was already gone. The doorbell rang, a shrill, insistent chime that violated the sanctity of my home. I knew who it was, the woman from the silver sedan. I thought about not answering, about hiding in the back room like a frightened child, but this was my house, damn it. For 30 more days, at least. I pulled the door open. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "Thomas, I'm Brenda Albright," she said, extending a hand I didn't take. She had a smile that didn't reach her eyes and a predatory stillness. "Michael's son." We spoke on the phone. We had not spoken on the phone. Michael had spoken to her. I was merely the subject of the conversation. I just need to take a few measurements, get the official photos for the online listing. "It says pending on the sign," I stated flatly. "A formality," she waved a dismissive hand. "We have a signed offer, but the bank needs to see a proper listing for the mortgage paperwork. The buyers are a development firm. They're very eager." She pushed past me into the hallway, her eyes scanning everything, appraising, judging. "We'll need to do some staging. Clear out most of this personal clutter." Clutter, she was talking about Clara's porcelain birds on the mantelpiece. She was talking about the framed photo of my parents on their wedding day. She was talking about the very soul of my home. "None of this is for sale," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Just then, Michael's car pulled into the driveway behind Ms. Albright's. He strode in without knocking. "Dad, I see you've met Brenda. Please, cooperate with her. She's the best in the business." He didn't look at me, he looked at Ms. Albright. "Is he giving you any trouble?" "We're just getting acquainted," she said smoothly. "Now, Thomas, if you could just let us get to work, we'll be in and out." For the next hour, I was a ghost in my own life. I sat in my armchair while this stranger, this vulture, walked through my home with a camera and a tape measure, discussing its good bones and resale potential with my son. They talked about me as if I wasn't there. The master bedroom has great light. Once we get rid of that heavy old furniture, she'd say. Yes, exactly, Michael would agree. We'll have it all cleared out for the final walkthrough. They moved through the rooms where I had lived and loved for nearly 50 years. Their conversation, a stream of sterile jargon, closing costs, escrow, title clearance. I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and more transparent with every word they spoke. This was the most profound kind of invisibility. To be seen, but not acknowledged. To be present, but entirely irrelevant. I retreated into myself, the anger from before curdling back into a familiar, hollow ache. They had won. It was over. As Ms. Albright was packing up her gear in the hallway, her phone rang. She answered it in a hushed, professional tone. Yes, Mr. Harrison. No hitches at all. The son is handling the occupant. Yes, it's a clean offer. As soon as we clear the title on the structure, it's all yours. She hung up and turned to Michael. The buyer is aggressive. He wants to know the title is clear. It is, Michael said confidently. My father signed the house over to us years ago. The deed is clean. The deed. The word cut through my stupor. The deed to the house. But what about the other deed? The thought, which had been a faint whisper, was suddenly a shout. Clear the title on the structure. She had been specific. My mind flashed back to the tax bill, with its two separate lines, land and structure. What if they weren't just two lines on a bill? What if they were two entirely different things? My hand was shaking as I redialed Arthur's number. The interaction with Ms. Albright and Michael had left a sour taste in my mouth, a mixture of impotence and fury. This time, he answered on the second ring, his voice a familiar, gravelly comfort. Thomas, I was just about to call you back. What's going on? You sounded grim. The dam broke. I told him everything. The birthday cake, the family circle, the casual cruelty of their announcement. I told him about Golden Meadows, the real estate agent, the for sale sign hammered into my lawn like a stake through my heart. I spoke for 10 minutes straight, the words pouring out of me in a torrent of pain and humiliation. When I was finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could picture him perfectly, sitting in his worn leather chair, looking out at the lake, his brow furrowed in concentration. The ungrateful little buzzards, he finally growled. I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm truly sorry. To do that to their own father. They think I'm losing my mind, Arthur. They think I'm an inconvenience to be managed, I said, my voice thick with emotion. They said they have the deed to the house, that I signed it over years ago. I think they might be right. I don't remember it clearly, but after Clara died, that sounds like them, he said grimly. Getting you to sign things when you were at your lowest. A classic move for the greedy. He paused. But a house is one thing. What about the ground it sits on? My heart leaped. That's what I wanted to ask you about, Arthur. I found an old tax bill. It's itemized. It lists the structure and the land separately, with two different assessed values. I explained what I had overheard Ms. Albright say on the phone, clear the title on the structure. There was another long, profound silence. This one felt different. It wasn't pity. It was the sound of gears turning in a brilliant legal mind. I could almost hear him sifting through decades of case law and property statutes. Thomas, he said slowly, his voice charged with a new energy. When did you and Clara buy that property? 1975, I think. It was just an empty lot back then. We camped on it for a whole summer before we even broke ground on the house. An empty lot, Arthur repeated, savoring the words. You bought the land first. And the deed. The original deed for the land itself, ... Where is it? I don't know, I admitted, my stomach tightening. Clara handled all that. It must be in her old file box somewhere. Listen to me very carefully, Thomas, Arthur said, his voice now sharp and commanding, the voice of the lawyer he used to be. They may have the deed to the house. It's possible you signed that over. But it's also possible, especially with a land purchase from that era, that the deed for the land itself is a separate instrument, a bifurcated title. It's rare, but I've seen it. They deeded the physical house, the improvements, to the children, but they forgot about the ground beneath it. A jolt, potent and electric, shot through me. It was the first flicker of genuine hope I'd felt in 48 hours. Find that deed, Arthur commanded. Go through every piece of paper Clara ever filed. Look for the original land grant deed from 1975. Do not talk to your children. Do not talk to that real estate agent. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Don't even breathe in their direction. Just find that deed. He paused for effect, letting his final words sink in. Thomas, if I'm right about this, you don't just have a bargaining chip. You have the whole table. They haven't sold your house. They've sold a building they have no legal right to access, sitting on land they don't own. Arthur's words acted like a shot of adrenaline to my weary soul. You have the whole table. For the first time since my disastrous birthday party, I felt a surge of power, a sense of purpose. I wasn't a helpless old man waiting to be carted off. I was a man on a mission. The treasure hunt, as I began to call it in my head, commenced immediately. I started with Clara's old file box, the one I had dismissed just the night before. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, pulling out folder after folder. The contents were a chaotic archive of our shared life. Vaccination records for the kids. Receipts for furniture long gone. Love letters we'd written in our 20s tucked between bank statements. Every paper was a memory, and I had to fight back waves of nostalgia and grief to stay focused. An hour turned into 2. The floor around me was covered in paper. I found the deed from 2015, the one transferring ownership of the residential structure to Michael and Sarah. My signature was there, shaky but legible. Seeing it was a fresh pang of betrayal, but it also confirmed part of Arthur's theory. It specified only the house, the building itself. There was no mention of the half-acre of land it rested upon. But where was the original deed? It wasn't in the box. I searched my office, a room that had become a repository for old books and tax returns. I went through every drawer, every shelf, my frustration mounting. Nothing. I was beginning to lose hope, the adrenaline fading into desperation. Where would Clara, my practical, cautious Clara, have put the single most important document we owned? I slumped into my armchair, defeated, and my eyes fell on the closet in our bedroom. It was a large walk-in, and in the back, behind a row of my old suits, was something I hadn't thought about in years. A small, grey, fireproof safe, bolted to the floor. Clara had insisted on it after a neighbor was burglarized. For the truly irreplaceable things, she had said. I rushed to the closet and pulled the suits aside. There it was. A wave of dizziness washed over me as I realized I had no idea what the combination was. Clara had always been the one to open it. I knelt on the floor, my old knees screaming in protest, and tried to channel her. What numbers would she have chosen? Our anniversary. Too obvious. The kids' birthdays, maybe. I tried Michael's birthday, 081978. Nothing. I tried Sarah's, 032581. The lock remained stubbornly shut. I tried our wedding date, our first address, every significant number I could think of. My frustration grew with each failed attempt until I was tempted to find a sledgehammer. Then I stopped. I closed my eyes and tried to think like my wife. She wasn't sentimental about numbers. She was practical. She always complained about forgetting irons. She would have chosen something she saw every single day, something she could never forget. My eyes snapped open. I looked at the wall above the safe, where an old, framed photograph of the house hung, a picture we took the day we finished building it. The address, 4517. It was too short, but what if she added something? The year we moved in, 1977. I slowly turned the dial, right to 45, left past 45 to 17, right to 77. I held my breath and turned the handle. For a second, nothing happened. Then, with a solid, beautiful, mechanical click, the bolts slid back. The safe was open. My heart hammered against my ribs as I swung the heavy door of the safe open. Inside, it was just as meticulously organized as I would have expected from Clara. There were a few pieces of her mother's jewelry, our birth certificates, and a stack of crisp savings bonds we'd bought when the children were born, bonds they apparently knew nothing about. And there, at the very bottom, in a thick, protective plastic sleeve, was a folded, yellowing document. The letterhead was from the county recorder's office, dated October 1975. I carefully slid it out. The language was dense with legal terminology, but the key phrases jumped out at me as if they were printed in neon. Double quotes, ... grant and convey to Thomas Miller and Clara Miller, his wife, as joint tenants. The parcel of land described herein as Lot 7, Block B, of the Sunrise Hills tract. I read it again and again. It was the deed for the land. Solely the land. There was no mention of a structure, because no structure existed yet. Arthur was right. It was a separate instrument. I scanned the document, my eyes hungry for the detail that would either save me or condemn me. I found it in a small, almost unnoticeable addendum, stapled to the back, an addendum Clara must have insisted upon. It was a clause establishing what Arthur had called a bifurcated title, explicitly stating that the title for the land was to remain separate from the title of any improvements or structures subsequently built upon it. Any transfer of the structure's title would not automatically include the title to the land. It was all there, in black and white. They had the deed to the house, but I had the deed to the ground beneath their feet. They had sold a shell, a building they couldn't move and that the new owners couldn't access without trespassing on my property. The sheer, beautiful, poetic brilliance of it washed over me. This wasn't just a legal loophole. It was a fortress, built 30 years ago by my wife's incredible foresight. She had protected me, even from beyond the grave. Tucked beneath the deed was another envelope, sealed, with my name written on it in her elegant, familiar script. My hand trembled as I picked it up. This, I knew, was the truly irreplaceable thing. I carefully broke the seal. The paper inside was not a legal document, but a letter, written on her favorite floral stationery. The date at the top was from 6 years ago, just a few months before she passed away, right after we had signed the house over to the children. I began to read. My dearest Thomas, it began. If you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you have found yourself in a situation difficult enough to open the old safe. I pray that day never comes, but my love, I know our children. I love them with all my heart, but I have seen how the world has changed them. I see the hunger in their eyes, the way they look at this home not as a place of memories, but as an asset on a balance sheet. A tear slid down my cheek and splashed onto the paper. It was as if she were in the room with me, her voice a warm whisper in my ear. I had felt so alone, but I hadn't been. She had been with me all along. She had seen this coming. The letter continued, and I could feel the weight of every word, a testament to her enduring love and protection. My gaze fell upon the final paragraph, where she laid out the purpose of her secret plan. But just as I was about to read the words that would surely tell me what to do, the shrill ring of the telephone shattered the sacred silence. I looked at the caller ID. It was Michael. My finger hovered over the screen, Clara's letter in my other hand, her final instructions waiting to be read. I let the phone ring, the sound an unwelcome intrusion. My eyes were fixed on Clara's letter, her handwriting a bridge across time. I had to know what she wanted me to do. Michael could wait. My hands shaking, I continued to read. "I know your heart, my love," she wrote. "You would give them anything, even the ground from beneath your own feet. That is why I had the lawyer add the bifurcation clause all those years ago. It felt silly then, an old-fashioned legal quirk. But I saw it as a safety net, an anchor to keep you grounded if they ever tried to set you adrift. They have the house, the wood and nails and glass, but you, my Thomas, you hold the earth. You hold the foundation. This land is where we planted our roots, where we watched our family grow. It is more than dirt and grass. It is the repository of our love. Do not let them take that from you. This is not about revenge, Thomas. It is about respect. It is about reminding them that a family is built on love, not on market value. They have forgotten what this place means. So, if you must, use this anchor I have left for you. Secure your own future, your own peace, and please, look after the grandchildren. Don't let their parents' ambition poison their hearts as well. Be strong, my darling. Your love was the foundation of my life. Now, let this land be the foundation of your strength." I finished the letter and broke down, pressing the fragile paper to my face. The tears were not of sorrow anymore, but of overwhelming gratitude and love. She had known, she had seen the flaw in our children's character long before I was willing to admit it to myself. She had armed me for a battle I never knew I would have to fight. The ringing of the phone had stopped, replaced by the quiet hum of the old house. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my shirt pocket, right over my heart. Her words had extinguished the last embers of my fear and replaced them with a calm, unshakable resolve. I knew exactly what to do. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. It was Michael. This time, I answered. "Dad, why didn't you pick up? I've been calling." His voice was impatient, strained. "I was busy," I said calmly. "Busy doing what?" "Packing," he scoffed. "Look, I'm just calling to let you know everything is on track. We've got an appointment with the bank tomorrow to finalize the buyer's financing. Sarah and I will be by tonight to help you sort through some of the junk in the garage." Junk. The word stung, but I didn't let it show. The tools my father gave me. The toboggan the kids used for years. Junk. "That won't be necessary, Michael," I said, my voice even. There was a pause. "What do you mean, Dad? Don't be difficult. This is happening." "Oh, I know it's happening," I said, a hint of steel in my tone that he had not heard in years. "In fact, I think it would be best if you, Sarah, and your spouses came over right now. There are a few things we need to discuss in person before you go to any bank. We're busy, Dad. We can't just drop everything. Michael," I interrupted, my voice dropping low and firm. "Get over here. Now." I hung up the phone before he could reply. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the calm before the storm. and for the first time in a long time, I was ready for the rain. They arrived less than an hour later, all four of them, a storm cloud of familial obligation darkening my doorway. They walked in without knocking, their faces a mixture of impatience and righteous indignation. They arranged themselves in the living room, a tribunal ready to pass sentence. Michael stood, arms crossed, the impatient CEO. Sarah sat on the edge of the sofa, her purse clutched in her lap like a shield. Diego and Laura stood behind them, silent but solid reinforcements. "Okay, Dad, we're here," Sarah said, her voice strained with forced patience. "What is so important that it couldn't wait?" "I just wanted to see you all," I said, gesturing to the armchair opposite mine. "Sit down, please." They exchanged wary glances, but did as I asked, perching stiffly on the furniture they were so eager to sell. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, observing them. They looked tired, stressed. The burden of their own greed was clearly wearing on them. Finally, Michael broke. "Look, Dad, if this is going to be another emotional speech—" "It's over, Dad," Sarah cut in, her tone softer, but no less final. "It's done. We signed the final papers with the buyer's agent this morning. The sale is official. The new owners are getting their financing in order, and they want to take possession in 30 days. We've already put down a deposit for your room at Golden Meadows." Diego slid his briefcase onto the coffee table and clicked it open. He pulled out a glossy brochure with a picture of smiling silver-haired seniors playing shuffleboard. He also produced a single sheet of paper. "They said, we already signed the papers," Diego recited, a hint of triumph in his voice. "This is just the last piece of the puzzle. It's a standard tenant vacate agreement. It just formalizes that you agree to leave the premises peacefully by the closing date. We just need your signature right here." He pushed the paper and a pen across the table toward me. This was it. The final humiliation they had planned for me, to sign away my own eviction notice. I looked down at the paper, then I looked up at their four expectant faces, gleaming with the thrill of victory. They saw a frail, defeated old man. They had no idea they were looking at their own ruin. I let a slow, sad smile spread across my face. I looked at Michael, then at Sarah. "There's just one small problem with your plan," I said, my voice perfectly calm. Michael rolled his eyes. "Dad, don't start. There are no problems. It's a done deal." "Oh, but there is a problem," I continued, leaning forward and placing my hands on my knees. "You see, you sold something that you don't fully own. You sold a house. A lovely house, with good bones, I hear, but the land it's sitting on, the very ground beneath this floor, that, my children, still belongs to me." For a moment there was complete silence. The four of them stared at me as if I had started speaking in a foreign language. Michael was the first to recover, letting out a short, contemptuous laugh. "What are you talking about? That's absurd. The property was signed over. The title is clean. We had a lawyer check everything." "You had a lawyer check the title on the house," I corrected him gently. "The structure, the improvements. But you forgot to check the title on the land itself." I reached into my shirt pocket and retrieved the two documents from the safe. The original land deed from 1×10 to the 975 and Clara's letter. I placed the deed on the coffee table but kept the letter in my hand. "Your mother was a very smart woman. When we bought this empty lot, she insisted on a bifurcated title. You own the building, but I, and I alone, own the half-acre of earth it occupies." The color drained from Diego's face. As the one who fancied himself the financial expert, he understood the implications instantly. That's not possible," he stammered, his eyes darting from my face to the ancient deed on the table. "I assure you, it is," I said. "You have signed a contract to sell a house that you cannot deliver. The new owners, the development firm, can't bulldoze it. They can't renovate it. They can't even step on the lawn to inspect it without my express written permission. To do so would be trespassing. You haven't sold them an asset. You've sold them a massive legal liability." Panic erupted. Sarah's mask of calm compassion shattered, replaced by sheer terror. "No, Dad, you can't do this. We'll be sued. We could lose everything." Michael lunged forward. "This is a trick. You're bluffing. You have to sell. We're your family, are you?" I asked, my voice quiet but cutting. "A family doesn't throw its own father out of his home for a cash offer. A family doesn't celebrate a man's 70th birthday by handing him an eviction notice." I looked at them, one by one, their greed and panic laid bare. "This house, this building you were so eager to get rid of, is meaningless to me now. You've tainted it. You've filled it with bad memories." They began to plead. They begged. They apologized. They made promises they would never keep. The threats came next, veiled warnings about my mental state and legal action of their own. But the words were hollow, their power gone. They had no leverage. They were standing on my land. When they had exhausted themselves, I held up a hand for silence. "Here is what is going to happen," I said, the authority in my voice absolute. I felt Clara's presence, her strength flowing through me. "You are going to call your developer. You will explain the situation. You will tell him that the owner of the land is willing to sell, allowing the deal for the structure to go through." A wave of relief washed over their faces. "Oh, thank you, Dad," Sarah sobbed. "Thank you." "I'm not finished," I said, silencing her. "The developer will pay you the full agreed-upon price for the house. However, you will not see a single penny of it. The entire sum will be placed into a trust fund, managed by my lawyer, Mr. Arthur Mendez. It will be used for one purpose only, the education and future of my grandchildren. You will not be able to touch it." Their faces fell. "But, we were counting on that money," Laura whimpered. "That was your mistake," I said flatly. "And in exchange for you doing exactly as I say, I will agree to sell my land to the developer, clearing your legal mess. I will sell it for the grand sum of $1. They stared at me, dumbfounded. They had tried to sell my home from under me, and in the end, they had succeeded only in liquidating their inheritance for the benefit of their own children, receiving nothing for their treachery but a single dollar for the land they never knew was mine. My name is Thomas. I am 70 years old, and I am telling you this story from the balcony of my new condominium overlooking the ocean. It's smaller than the house, but it's all mine. I used my own savings, the money Clara and I put away for a rainy day. My grandchildren visit every weekend. We walk on the beach, and I tell them stories about their grandmother, their parents, and I. We don't speak much. They made their choice. They learned that a home is not wood and nails, but the love and respect you build within its walls. They forgot that the most valuable thing you can own is your integrity. And they learned, the hard way, that sometimes the most powerful truths are not in the contracts we sign, but in the very ground beneath our feet.